What's up, Buck? Doug with D&E in the garage. Today I got to go do some cutting. Got to cut up some firewood. Got some trees that came down during the fall storms out there. So that means it's time to tune up the old Stihl here and get to work. Now this saw right here is a powerhouse. It was my father's. If you're not familiar, it's a Stihl Woodsman. It's a top of the line for consumer grade. My father bought it in the 1980s. Oh, and while it has had a rough life, often rode hard and put up dirty, this saw is still alive and kicking. Now we have other saws in our arsenal. We've got a couple of Echoes, we've had a John Surratt. Never owned a Husqvarna, but I wouldn't mind giving them a shot one day. But this saw right here, this is the powerhouse. It's just got a 16-inch bar, though I'll bet you it could handle up to about a 22 probably. That'd be pushing it, but I'll bet it could do it. What I want to talk to you all about today is buying good tools. Let me tell you a story about this saw here. When my father was younger, before I was even around, he bought a significant amount of property up in Penobscot, Maine. Completely untamed land that he purchased. He got in his F-250, went up there and decided to clear it himself. Took this saw with him. I think he had the little John Surratt. And he went up and I think, was it 27 acres? Should have checked with him before I tried to tell this story. I think he cleared about 27 acres by himself with nothing but this saw and a couple other tools. No power up there, no electricity, not even any buildings. When he was up there, he was living out of the back of his, I think it was an 87 F-250. Anyway, one night, after working all day long, sun up to sundown, he stops work, puts the saw down, cleans things up, gets in the truck to head back to camp, backs up, hears an odd noise. Lo and behold, this saw right here was under the back wheels of the F-250. But you will notice this saw is also still here. Now before you ask, no, it did not have to be completely rebuilt. I imagine it probably needed a new bar. And occasionally it leaks a little bit of bar and chain oil, and we attribute that to the F-250 incident. But this saw right here, this saw is the powerhouse of our arsenal. We've had Echoes, we've had John Surratts, I've had Craftsman's, we've had other kinds of saws. This thing is the go-to, all right? And the reason is my dad bought a quality tool, and that's a lesson that he passed on down to me. Buy quality tools and then take care of them. That's what I'm doing right here. Before I take the saw out, I usually try to do it before I put it away. Clean it up, man. Clean off the air filter here. Clean everything out. If you take care of a good tool, it will last for a while. Now I hear what you're saying. Sometimes you're just paying for the name, aren't you? That's true. If you want to be an educated consumer, you have to be educated, obviously, right? You got to look into it. It's a crazy thing these days. A lot of the brands we know as being good are really owned by the same conglomerate. You know, I'm pretty sure that the people who make DeWalt and the people who make Milwaukee are owned by the same company. If you ever watched aVe's videos, he goes into that a lot. You'll buy a Milwaukee tool for a premium price, and then you get it next to a DeWalt or something, and you find out it's the same tool, just with a different color plastic, you know? And I understand, that makes it difficult to trust buying good tools. So what you have to do is educate yourself. In my life, in my career of owning tools, I've had 2 reciprocating saws. The first one was Stihl brand. I got it at the Home Depot down there. Needed it for a job. I think I was building a shed when I was about 19. Went out and bought it. It was the cheapest option because I didn't have a lot of money. All my money was going to beer at that time. And I had that saw for maybe 6 months. It was complete garbage. Blades didn't fit right, had no power. It was not ergonomical, didn't even come with a case, you know. After that I acquired a Bosch, significantly more expensive. But I guarantee that Bosch saw is going to be around for my whole life, and I'll probably be passing it on to my kids. Honestly, it's a good saw. Cost more than 2 times as much as the Stihl, yes, but that reciprocating saw for those who don't know, is a Sawzall. Sawzall is the Milwaukee brand name, but it's just a reciprocating saw. Now, I believe the same thing goes for these chainsaws. Bear with me, guys, trying to talk and work at the same time here. I believe the same thing goes for things like chainsaws, right? You can get an Echo, and I have an Echo. It's like $100 at Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever it is. And it's a good saw, but I know there's no chance I'm passing that down on to my kids. The lesson here is educate yourself, consider what you really need the tool for. All right, now I have an air hammer, you know, that I use once a year. All right, and I knew I was going to use it once a year. I'm not a professional mechanic. Last time I used it was over the summer to do the XJ rear shock bolts there. I went to the Harbor Freight. I got one for like 30 bucks tops. And, you know, I take care of it so that it'll last as long as possible. I always oil it. Don't drag it across the driveway or anything like that. But I know that's not going to last forever. But I don't need it to last forever. Even if I only get 30 uses out of it, considering I use it once a year. Well, you do the math, you know. So you got to educate yourself. Think about what you really need the tool for. And, oof. I'm a little embarrassed at how dirty this saw got put away. I think this was, I'll tell you what happened. It was a tree came down on my neighbor's house, and it was my tree. Didn't damage the house or anything, but I had to get it off of there quick. So I quick pulled the tree back with my Jeep and then cut it up real quick just to get it off their house, you know. Didn't want any problems with the neighbors. And I put it away dirty. I'm thoroughly embarrassed. Where was I? Point is, number one priority should always be to buy good tools. If you can get a Stihl Woodsman style tool that you're going to have and use and abuse, and it's going to possibly make you money, certainly make your life easier, and then you pass it down and a whole nother generation gets the same thing for it, that's a good tool right there. That's a real good tool right there, I'll tell you what. If you can't afford it though, alright? Now, let's go back to my air hammer example. I could get a snap-on air hammer. I don't even know how much they are. I'm sure it's several $100s though. It doesn't make any sense for me to spend $400 on a tool I'm going to use once a year. I'll probably lose it before it ever goes bad, you know. To me, that doesn't make sense. Right? I don't need that. But something like a reciprocating saw, which I use all the time. I use it on exhaust for the Jeeps. I use it on projects for the house. Right? I use my reciprocating saw all the time, and sure, if I have a son or even my daughter, if she's into it, I'll pass that down to them, you know. My dad has a pair of tools in his garage, which I am just truly envious of. Both of them were his father's. One is a Delta full-size drill press. Everything's cast iron. I mean, this thing is gorgeous. It just hums, and you could go through anything with that thing. The other thing is a table saw. I don't remember who makes the table saw. It might be Delta as well, but I mean, this thing's old school. Again, cast iron base and everything, and it was his father's, passed down to my dad. They're showing no signs of quitting. And obviously, they don't make tools like that anymore. You're not going to get a cast iron drill press that will be passed down for, you know, 3 or 4 generations. But you can still get decent tools, and you can take care of them, and then perhaps they will be around. Excuse me a second. I gotta find a brush. Now, I already touched on this, but and I say it all the time, and it's something Eric and I talk about all the time. You gotta take care of your stuff, you know? Nothing kills me more than seeing somebody who, whether they buy good tools or they buy crappy tools or whatever, it doesn't matter. They don't take care of them, though, you know? They leave them out in the rain. They let them get rusty. They let them get dusty. They leave them dirty. They put them away dirty. They just leave them in a jumbled heap somewhere. And that kills me, man. There's no need for that, you know? It takes so little time to take care of your stuff, and it says so much about your character as a person, you know. That's one of the reasons I love driving older Jeeps the way I do. I think it says a lot about me, that I would rather keep an old Jeep on the road, give it that little bit of love and attention. Same, you know, anything. It doesn't have to be a Jeep, an older car, you know, it's easy. It's not hard, especially these days, to go out and finance, come on, you little bugger, to finance some new vehicle. What am I, an idiot? I can't get a spark plug in today? It doesn't take anything real special to go out and finance a new vehicle. And nothing against you if that's what you're into, you know. But that's the easy way out. What is going on here? I can't get the spark plug in. Nothing against that per se, but it's not like it makes you friggin' special or something, you know. What makes you special is taking the time to learn and putting the energy into keeping something older on the road and working. And as we previously mentioned, every year that goes by, the options are built with more planned obsolescence in mind. You know, they don't want, Stihl doesn't want us to have saws that are around for 50 years anymore. That doesn't pay. You know, they want a saw that's good enough for 10 years, then you have to get a new one. Maybe not even 10 years. Same thing with vehicles, you know. My 2000 Cherokee, that thing is built in such a way that it will keep going as long as I want it to keep going. Yes, perhaps maintenance costs may get more expensive. You know, big ticket items like engines and transmissions may need to be replaced, but it's built in a way that if I had the mind to, I could keep it running indefinitely. All right, that's my honest opinion on it. And when you go back even further to even older vehicles, forget about it. You know, you get your hands. I mean, you see it today. You see people will pull a Willys CJ2A out of the absolute weeds. I literally just saw it the other day, so I don't remember whose YouTube channel it was. They pulled a Willys CJ2A out of the weeds. I mean, when he pulled the head off the motor, water poured out. Like, this thing was K-friggin-O'd. Engine was KO'd. Body had rust and rot and everything, but the bones were good enough that with a little bit of time, money, energy, dedication, he was able to get it up and running again, you know? And that's huge to me. I don't know that my wife has a new Jeep Compass, which we like very much. For what we needed, it was a perfect... oh, come on, buddy. It was a perfect replacement for her Jeep Commander that she had previously, but I just don't know that that's the kind of car that's going to be around in 50 years. You know, there will still be old Cherokees around in 50 years. There will certainly be... Dang, this is a new chain. That's a nice surprise. I thought I was going to have to sharpen the chain today. No such love. I'm okay with that. There will be Cherokees around in 50 years, and they'll be rough, but you'll be able to pull them out of the weeds and bring them back to life if you want to, especially the older ones. I've heard rumors, and I'm starting to think it is true, that they lessened the gauge of the metal the older the Cherokees got. So if you have a mid to late 80s Cherokee, even though it's very similar to my 2000 after the refresh, the gauge of the metal is smaller. People suggest that it's actually real dirty in here. I'm embarrassed you are seeing this. There's a leaf in here. Jesus. With the conversation we're having, this might have been a terrible example. They've suggested that as time went on, they lessened the gauge of the metal, and you can actually tow less because the unibody's not as strong. And, you know, I'll bet it's true. Because they realized, listen, man, we don't need to build these things to last. We don't really want them to. You know, if somebody bought a Cherokee in 1984 and they still have it today, that Jeep's not making any more money on that, you know? They want you to, they need you to get a new car every 10 years or so. If you don't ever purchase a new vehicle, oh boy, and you just keep driving that one you bought 10, 20, 30 years ago, they're not making any money off you. So yes, obviously we've gotten on a bit of a tangent here. I don't think anybody on the planet would disagree that new stuff is less skookum, as aVe would say, than the old stuff, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to buy good tools. Alright, because what is everything today? Instead of being mechanical, it's electronic, right? Well, I keep bringing up aVe in this video, but if you watch his videos, not all electronics are built the same. Alright? So it makes perfect sense to get quality stuff. Come on, little buddy. To get quality stuff and take care of it. Even today, it may not be as obvious. When I look at this saw, when you pick this saw up, the saw's freaking heavy. All right. For similar saws today with similar power, similar bar size, and everything, when you pick them up and then you pick this thing up, you think this thing's full of bricks or something. You know. What am I missing here? There we go. Oh, what was I saying? Oh yeah, when you pick this saw up, it's evident that this saw is more heavy duty than even a Husqvarna or probably even a Stihl of today. All right, more of this saw is metal. It's obvious where the money was. It's obvious that it is a quality tool. It's not necessarily the case with tools today. If you pick up two drills, right? You pick up the DeWalt cordless drill and you pick up the Makita cordless drill. For the sake of this argument, let's agree that the Makita is probably a better tool. They may very well be the same weight. They may look very, very much the same plastic. They probably make the same claims, but proof is inside, you know. and I'm going to mention aVe one more time and then I'll leave it alone. If you haven't watched any of his stuff, I highly recommend you do. What he is he's a Canadian fella, electronic engineer, I believe. And what that means is his knowledge of how stuff is made is just incredible, right? So what he does is he takes tools apart. He does all kinds of stuff, but he takes tools apart a lot of the time, and he analyzes them. He breaks it down, and he'll look and he'll say, oh, well, you know, for this voltage they should have used this size wire, but instead they use this one, and that makes it better or worse. And oh, well, you know, the switch on this one's a little weak, so that's likely a you know, a weak point in the whole tool. And unfortunately, you know, and he's actually discovered through these little tests and stuff that a lot of the big names that we know and trust actually are not as, they're actually the same as everything else, you know. So there's a company in China, and they own these 5 brands, and they put a different plastic on the same tool and sell it at 5 different price points. Back in the day, there was a noticeable difference between, let's say, a DeWalt tool and a Milwaukee tool, perhaps, you know. And today they may be the exact same tool, sold by the same parent company under 2 different names to 2 different segments of the market. So, what am I getting at here? Because of tools like this saw and my Jeep Cherokee and the tools my dad has in his garage, I am of the mind that it makes sense to buy good tools when you can. Another thing I've always said on this channel is buy what you can afford. So yeah, you probably have to balance what you can afford with buying good tools. But let's break this down here. Buy good tools. Okay? The caveat to that is when you can. Don't break the bank. But if you can afford it, maybe you have to save for an extra week. Buy the good tools. You're going to be happy you did. Once you bought the good tools, take care of them. Don't do what I did with my beloved saw here and apparently let it sit for a few months with friggin' leaves and crap underneath the chain guard and all that. Clean them, dry them, oil them when you need to. And on top of all this, going into this, you need to understand that it's not the same world. You don't just pick up the saw anymore and you instantly know that, oh, this one is better than that one for this reason. You probably have to be an educated consumer. Go watch some aVe videos. Go look at some online reviews. Online reviews are crazy. I don't know how I could buy anything in the world we live in right now without online reviews. I would buy so much garbage on Amazon because Amazon's great, man. I can get cheap stuff that otherwise I'd never have access to, and it's affordable. You know, I bought a really nice caliper measuring tool recently. It was like 20 bucks. I wouldn't have bought a $20 mic like that, but the reviews were great. They said, listen, man, it's perfect for someone like me who doesn't need it every day. And so I felt comfortable go ahead and buying that $20 mic, and it was a great tool, you know. So read those reviews. It's crazy important, you know. Tell you what, I'd love to see a review on an old saw like this. It would be pretty good. I mean, this thing has been through everything. I know for a fact when I was younger, I've run it dry without bar oil. Like I said, my dad ran it over with a friggin' F250. I'm sure it's been caught in rainstorms, snowstorms. It's definitely been asked to eat more than it was designed to eat. Another story about this saw and you know, just some of the abuse it's taken. Hurricane Sandy that hit New Jersey hard, all right? Brought down trees all over the place. The problem was, whatever direction the wind usually comes from in our area, Hurricane Sandy blew winds the other way. So all the trees that were fortified in one direction, meaning their roots were stronger, used to sustaining winds in that direction, they were weaker in the other direction. So trees were down everywhere. You couldn't go a quarter mile without a tree being down over the road somewhere. Trees were down on people's houses, in their driveways, and all the local legitimate tree companies were busy. I mean, there were power lines down. People had big holes in their houses and it was snowing, you know. So they couldn't get to the guy who just had a tree down in his driveway, and so he couldn't get his cars out. So what Eric and I did was we hopped in Little Red, his S10. Man, that S10, I was not a Chevy guy, and I'm still not, but that S10, that thing could do some work. Anyway, he put his Husky in the back, I put this Stihl in the back, and we went out and cleared people's driveways. And that was, it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks that my area didn't have power. 2 weeks where we couldn't go to work because, you know, our jobs didn't have power either, so we weren't working. It was a real state of emergency. And during that time, we were just clearing trees with our saws. Now, this thing, like I said, has a 16-inch bar. I was cutting through 24-plus-inch logs with this thing, you know, absolutely bogging it down, trying to get these giant trunks off some guy's driveway so that he could get out, you know, to get milk, bread, and eggs for the family. This thing didn't stutter, didn't overheat. It's just a real skookum tool, you know. You can't kill this thing, you know. I certainly hope you can. I would never be able to replace it. Stihl still makes some great stuff. I've had the joy of using some of Stihl's newer professional grade saws, and they are incredible, but they're $600. Now, like we were talking about, buy good tools, but buy what you can afford. There's no way, if this saw doesn't start today and it turns out it's some kind of catastrophic failure that I just can't fix, I'm not going to be able to afford a comparable replacement. I can't buy a $600 chainsaw, right? I'm not an arborist. I'm not a tree guy. I don't do this professionally. While I do cut a lot of wood, because we heat our house with wood, I'd have to go out and I'd have to buy the, you know, the $350 Husqvarna, what is it, the Rancher? Something like that, and that would break my heart to not have a Stihl in the house. But that's what I could afford, you know. These new Stihls, you know, Stihl is a premium brand. They're professional grade, so what I need to do is hold on to this saw as long as I can, because what they call a professional grade today was just the standard grade back back in the day, right? You know, I've even had this saw up against other 1980s saws, you know. I had a buddy that had a 1980s Homelight, and I've also dealt with like early 90s Craftsmans, and man, you could get cheaper saws when my dad bought this, and boy were they cheap, you know. Plastic, everything, just not meant to last. Disposable tools, that's what it comes down to, right? This is not a disposable tool. This is a tool that, if taken care of, should last forever. I can't imagine what could possibly happen to this saw that I couldn't fix. You know, let the carb go, I'll get a new carb. For some reason it seizes, I will fix that too. We've already proven that running it over with a vehicle is not going to kill it, so I imagine this saw will be around for the rest of my life. I'll be passing it on to whoever's next in line. You better believe Tess is going to learn how to, it's my little girl, she's going to learn how to cut wood. Yep, that's going to be part of her responsibilities as well. As soon as she's old enough, we'll get her out there. I'll teach her how to cut wood, teach her how to split wood, how to keep a saw, how to keep an axe in good shape. Saws, I feel like they get enough respect. You want to know a tool that gets zero friggin' respect from most people? Axes and hatchets. I'll be in someone's garage, see the axe or hatchet they have lying up against the side of the wall, and the state they're in is just friggin' horrible. Why doesn't anyone know how to sharpen a blade anymore? Huh? Why does nobody on the planet have one of these to keep your stuff nice? Alright? Axes and hatchets have become completely disposable tools. You go to Walmart, you pay $9.95 for one, you use it until it's dull, then you wing it in the garbage and you go get another one. That kills me, man. I love bladed tools. Big fan of bladed tools. Good bladed tools. I just don't understand why no one takes 10 minutes to learn how to sharpen anything anymore. Same thing with these chainsaws. Oregon makes really inexpensive blades. So chainsaw blades have become disposable. You use it until it gets dull and then you just chuck it, I guess. You know? And that friggin' kills me. Here's another thing nobody does anymore. They don't flip their bar. Every time I clean up the saw, I flip the bar. You guys know why? Well, it's very simple. The bottom of the bar, the one that's doing most of the cutting, wears out much quicker than the top. And you'll actually start cutting crooked. You'll stretch out these spacers. You'll wear down these rails on the side. So every couple of, I know some guys that say every time they put gas in it, every couple of times, at least once a year, if you have a good saw and you're not one of those idiots who buys disposable tools, flip your bar every once in a while. You're supposed to. Bars are meant to be flipped, and that way everything will wear evenly and you will have a much better saw experience. Oh. Ah, come on, you old jerk. What's going on here? What goes on here? Alrighty. So, this is a bit of a tangent. I definitely would like to know what you all think about this. I've had enough interaction with the men and women who are interested in this channel to know that you guys are like me. You don't buy disposable tools. You buy the best possible tool that you can afford, and you take care of it. I know that because I've talked to you guys. You guys are the ones out there keeping a 30-year-old Cherokee, Wrangler, Grand Cherokee on the road as a daily, just to show what kind of person you are, and I respect that. So, let me know what kind of tools you guys have in your garage that you know for a fact will be there for the next generation. This saw right here, for sure. My Bosch Sawzall, assuming I don't burn it out or God knows what. I think it's just going to be around. I have a Delta bandsaw, which my father bought. It turned out my dad's I'm into cars, and whatnot. My dad is he's a woodworker. It's his hobby, and he buys really good woodworking tools. And he bought this big bandsaw. You've seen it in some of the videos. But it turned out he didn't really use it. He didn't like it as much as he thought he was going to. And so he gave it to me, and that thing is built. It's built well. It needs new tires right now. The big drive tires on the wheels there. That thing will be around. Like I said, this saw will be around. My friggin' Cherokee will probably be around still. But a lot of the other tools, that little air hammer I bought, that won't be around. I'll use it, and at some point it'll just stop working. And since it was $30, I'll wing it in the garbage. You know, I'm not going to take it apart. I'm not going to try to find parts to fix it. It just is what it is. I made that too loose. So anyway, let me know what kind of tools you guys have in your garage that you know will be there for the next generation. Let me know what you think about. How do you figure out what's a good tool these days? The only thing I have is reviews, because I'm not like aVe. I don't know enough about, or anything about, electronical engineering to figure out, yeah, this is a good tool, no, that's a bad tool, you know. I'm also a sucker for brands, I don't mind telling you. If you can't tell, Jeep can do no wrong. Stihl is probably one of my favorite brands in the world because of this saw. So a lot of times I'll buy a tool just because of the brand on it. I kind of did a video all about this brand loyalty. If you're at all interested, you might want to check that out. It's more of a philosophical rant, but some good information in there. Anyway, you know what y'all think. If you made it to the end of this, I guess essentially pointless video. I mean, I got my saw tuned up during the video. You guys had to just sit there. I do apologize for that. But anyway, as always, thanks for watching. See you next time. You know, someone in one of our last videos left a derogatory comment. Jeez, Pops, come on now. About me being a safety freak. You're damn right I'm a safety freak, man. Eye protection. Wear some gloves. Damn, got my guard dogs right there. That's protection. The only thing I don't have when I run this saw is ear protection, unless I'm running it all day. I like to be able to hear what I'm doing, but when I'm running it all day, you better believe ear protection. That cracked me up. I didn't answer. You know, what are you gonna do? But what was the video? It was on the propane video, the propane vacuum test video, and I suggested you should wear some safety glasses when spraying flammable gases, and I guess they thought that was a step too far. Hey man, to each your own. I protect personal liberties, but for me, I'm gonna wear eye protection every chance I get. You better believe it.